after me. Jokers to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes,
What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to Stuck with Collin, episode 12. I'm stuck in with me, as always, is Collin Wilson. A special edition episode. We're going to talk to a number of the employees and our experts at Action Network in their particular sports to just talk about updated thoughts and opinions on when sports are coming back. And I guess I should say, you're stuck with me. I'm stuck with you. We're all still stuck inside, so you're stuck with us. What's going on, Collin?
Just getting the exercise routine in. I mean, it's a daily rhythm of like focus your mental health, get your physical health in order, get something going on, do something constructive during the day, pick something out in the house, work on it, get that done. So it's every day it's the same routine. I don't know how if this is. I don't want to say it's like prison life, but I mean, there's routine to every single day, right? I mean, there's all different parts you got to take care of.
Yeah, I'm able to get out one day a week. I go down to the bar and drink with my girl when she's working. She does the takeout window at her bar and sells liquor. So I go to the bar with like my dog, and I'm the only one in the bar. But it's like I'm going somewhere else,
Right.
which helps a little bit. But yeah, other than that, same stuff. Have you been betting? I've bet 3 times the last 3 weeks on Nicaraguan soccer. That is it. 3 bets on 3 Saturdays. I'm 3-0. It is now my most profitable sport of all time, ROI wise. I've had 3 bets and I won them all. So that's it. That is the extent of my betting. I bet some Chinese baseball today. Zerillo, we're going to have him on. He's been killing it there. I haven't even betting the horses. What have you been betting, if anything?
Yeah, shout out to Zerillo because I think he's won me money the last 2 days in a row in the Chinese baseball. So you guys should definitely go read some of that. Besides that, I've been betting on some esports, and I know that for the Action Network, we're actually going to probably have a show, and we're definitely going to have a write-up talking about Call of Duty World League taking place next weekend. Chicago is supposed to be the host site for this, although there's some remote teams in it. Myself and Sean Kerner are going to bring all the odds, what they should be, what you should bet, and should you bet map 1, map 2. And if you don't understand any of that stuff because Call of Duty is foreign to you, I'm going to write an article. It should be up posted midweek, and we'll get some betting on some esports this weekend.
All right, so we're going to talk with we have things to look forward to, by the way. We have the MJ doc tonight. I was just watching that Game 6 again of the 98 finals, and I mean, that was MJ's last game as a Bull, and they won the finals in Utah. They were 2-point underdogs, by the way. Pippen was hurt. Jordan had nothing left in the tank, but Stockton hit a 3 with like 30 seconds left. Jordan 2 for 1, scores in 4 seconds, then steals it from Malone, hits that jumper to win it, and then they get a stop for his 6th title. But early in that game, there was all these blown calls. Like there was an Isley 3 by the Jazz. Got it off by a full second. They waved it off for a 24-second clock. This is a game that finished 87-86. Then with 4 minutes to go, Harper hit a shot for the Bulls. Clearly after the bell, they counted it. 5 points. It's just a torture game for the Jazz. But that should be fun to watch. We have Billions coming back next week. Or in 2 weeks, we have the draft next week. So there's some things on the horizon that I'm excited for. And anything that you're looking forward to besides this Call of Duty?
The MJ doc, I think, is going to be like the greatest thing because for particularly somebody that's in my situation, like when I was 12, 13 years old, it was all about him overcoming the Pistons and getting the shit beat out of him by Rick Mahorn every night and Bill Laimbeer clotheslining everybody that came down into the paint. Like I was really connected to the NBA in my preteens and my early teens when Michael Jordan was starting to take off. And then all throughout my teenage years and into college, Michael Jordan was a really big deal. And I loved the NBA back then. And everything was so drive to the paint and get into the hole centric as to where today's game, there's much more finesse and a lot more shooting. And the 3-point line is a lot more involved. So I'm really excited for the standpoint of letting my sons who are now 12 and 13 years old see this Michael Jordan. They see the shoes, they see the clothing, they know the myth, they know all that, but have they really sat down and actually seen it through my eyes, which is what they're going to see tonight, which I'm extremely excited about. Besides that, Westworld's got 2 episodes left. Better Call Saul just rattled off its 2 best episodes ever in a row consecutively. The finale, I believe, is tomorrow night.
Yeah, Homeland. I already watched episode 11, which was tonight. If you're still on that show, this season's been so good. There's only 1 episode left of the entire show, which is next week. Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I wasn't old enough to enjoy all of Jordan. I mean, I obviously grew up watching it, but a lot of it was like in '98. I was 12, so
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing stuff that maybe I haven't seen or read about, and just reliving those years. It's a good time for it, and they're going to show that Bulls intro with Jordan before those playoff games. That's the greatest intro of any sport. Any team has ever had. It goes all dark and then do 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 do. And then you see the bull light fly. That was the best intro. All right. Well, we're going to go through every sport here, or not all, most of them. We'll start with college football. And my updated thoughts, because I'll let you give the majority of them, is that we're going to have a full season, but it's going to be delayed. And I think that college football, more so than almost any other sport, needs fans there. There's all of these, a lot of these towns. First of all, just the programs in general need athletic programs and schools and conferences need college football. But even, an extension of that is these college towns need people to come there and go to the games. And
Right.
you have all this up in the air of the fall, and are students going to be on campus? Is it going to come back? This virus going to come back with a second wave in the fall? So I think the safest bet is that they're going to delay it, and we might see it start in potentially December. But I think that we are going to get a college football season, but it's going to be delayed. Your updated thoughts and opinion?
Well, I know that there was some debate this week out there on Twitter about how much revenue comes from tickets and why there has to be fans. Like, I don't think the NFL needs to have fans there. I don't think they need that money whatsoever. It's all wrapped up in TV contracts.
TV, yeah.
Yeah, so it's different with the NCAA. And the problem is, and you think, well, it's just college football. It could be a couple games. You don't understand that all of the other sports that we love, like college basketball, college baseball, gymnastics, they all depend on college football to bring in the most revenue. And more importantly, think about the Olympics. Where do you think most of these athletes and all of these vast number of sports, where do you think that they're training, and they're doing it at college universities? So from a Team USA standpoint for the Olympics, the NCAA allowing football games to go on, that's what funds everybody, all right? That's the lion's share of the money the NCAA gets. We have to have the game. So I think in order, it's going to be, if we get any kind of delay or any kind of disturbance to the current schedule that's out there, they're going to play a full 12-season game. It's going to start on October 3rd. It's going to end on December 19th. I know that's being pushed around and out there, but I keep hearing more and more, especially from, officials within the NCAA, if there aren't people on campus, if there aren't students on campus and there isn't a vaccine, we're not going to have games at all, games period. I mean, it's not a big enough, there's too many players to test everybody before the game, after the game. I think honestly it is going to get pushed next spring. I would actually bet on it going to next spring rather than an October 3rd to December 19th season, which is going to be heartbreaking to me because I don't know what your favorite sport is, Stuck. I know we love them all, but college football to me is extremely special. Like I'm a little depressed about baseball. I was a little depressed about the Masters not being around. I was a little depressed about March Madness, but we get to Labor Day weekend and there's no college football. I'll be beside myself, completely beside myself.
Yeah, I mean, mine from a betting perspective are probably college basketball, tennis, and NFL. And college football, I throw in with NFL. But college basketball probably number one. But I think if the kids aren't on campus, that's why I think like December, because it's like a second semester thing, right? Like if we're going to be able to, there's no vaccine and it could come back in the fall, then
right.
You could potentially have college basketball and college football just be a second semester thing across the land, which is my thought. And college basketball is obviously starts later than college football, a couple of months. So college basketball, it's going to depend on whatever happens with college football. So I think there's going to be a season, which is good.
12. They have to have their money. They're going to play all 12. There's going to be a season, and they have to play all 12. And then that's where we get into the dichotomy of there won't be a Trevor Lawrence around. He'll just declare for the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So more to come there. Let's start reaching out to some people. Hey, what's going on? Scott?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Me?
Yep.
How are you, man?
All right. I was just letting everyone know. We said we're just going to go through and talk with a bunch of people at Action. And one of the ones that I wanted to get on was you, for those who aren't familiar with Scott. You can follow him on Twitter @ByScottMiller. He mentioned in our Slack he was listening to the latest Bill Simmons podcast, and it was probably the best piece of good news that you've had in a while in regards to sports coming back. So I wanted to get you to share that, and then your thoughts on if the NFL starts on time, which I think it does, but curious to get your thoughts on both of those things.
Yeah, the Simmons podcast was really interesting. Casey Wasserman was the guest, and if you're not super familiar with Casey, he's extremely well connected in the sports world. He owns his own agency, represents players like Russell Westbrook in the NBA and a lot of other big name players in MLB and in the NBA. He's the guy who brought the Olympics to LA in 2028. So he's sort of in the sports conversation. He's very good friends with Adam Silver, for example, and he was adamant. Number one, we'll see sports played in 2020, which I know that sounds a little weird to be for that to be a positive thing, but that was good to hear. And then, he said he thought golf would be first, baseball would be next, and everything I've read seems that that's the case as well. So it was just good to hear his optimism. I think he was pretty pessimistic about college football, just to have a negative spin, just because of their reliance on fans for revenue. So that is sort of a little bit of a wrench. You have to look at how reliant are these leagues and these and the teams and the players on fan-based revenue, because I think we will all agree that getting fans into the stands anytime soon seems like a little bit of a pipe dream. We'll see with where we are in October, but it was a super interesting interview, and it was good to hear a little bit of optimism around the return sports.
But that means that would be good news for the NFL, right? Because we were just talking about this. They're not that reliant on seat revenue as much as college football is.
Yeah, correct. So with regards to the NFL, I think that the NFL this year probably expects to make about $10 billion in revenue. And I think it's anywhere from 65% of that revenue, maybe up to 70, is from media rights. So ESPN, CBS, Fox, Red Zone, DirecTV, NBC, they make so much of their money from TV rights, 15% of their revenue. So 1.5 of, say, the 10 billion comes from just gate receipts. So it's not an unsubstantial amount of money, but they would play the games without fans if it was the difference between not playing football and playing football.
I think the best thing from that podcast was a very positive spin, and it was probably going to be Las Vegas, where the host site was going to be. There was a debate between Los Angeles and Las Vegas makes so much sense from so many different angles. But the fact that you're going to have to test people before, you're going to have to test them after, take their temperature, and then you got to quarantine them in the team hotel. There's families involved with that. It seems to me like golf is the one that's going to easily be able to. There's a limited number of players, limited number. There's space for all of that. That they have the most social distancing out of them all. Do you think baseball would be the biggest problem? Because if you're going to put everybody into Arizona, and I'm a guy that goes down to the Cactus League often, you just take your 40-minute drive all over. That's a lot of players. That's a lot of people in the dugout. That's a lot of managers. There's a lot going on with baseball. It just seems tougher.
Yeah, so golf is actually interesting. I agree that it does. I mean, it is the most socially distant sport. The wild card with golf is travel, right? Like with all these leagues we're talking about coming back early, we're literally talking about putting them in a bubble. So we're talking about putting all the NBA teams, or if we start the NBA playoffs, putting them in their own Vegas hotels, a very controlled environment. Same thing with MLB in Arizona, as you mentioned. God knows what the NHL is thinking, because I don't know if Gary Bettman knows what day it is, but the wild card with golf is travel, and all these players travel differently. I think everyone assumes that they travel privately. They really don't. It's really the top 10 to 15% who do that. I think the tour is going to have to figure out, how do we get these players from site to site in a pretty controlled environment. I think that there's enough money on the line to where they'll figure that out. With baseball, Jeff Passan's the best baseball reporter, and I don't even know who's number two. Like, he is by far and away the best, and he had a really interesting report on the Arizona situation. He was the one who broke that. And most interesting was he was on the ESPN Daily podcast, and he was pretty adamant that baseball was fine being first among these leagues. They were fine sort of taking that risk, because it is a risk. But they're fine doing it, because if they don't do it, they're going to lose the whole season. At a certain point, it's worth it for them to, quote unquote, take the risk. And if they have to shut it down, they have to shut it down. But it's a difference between having a season in not having a season. The NBA and the NHL, they're just trying to figure out how to finish their seasons. Baseball, at a certain point, the more you push it off, it wouldn't be worth it for them to do a super truncated season. Like there's just not enough money, so they feel like they need to play a certain amount of games, and I think that's why they're willing to try to risk being first and see Arizona as a decent way to do it. The other thing that I find interesting about baseball is the players union in baseball is the most powerful union in all of sports, and Passan's reporting essentially said that the union is on board with this plan. The union wants to get this done because the players want to get paid by and large. There are definitely challenges with some big players have come out sort of against it. Mike Trout being one of them. He actually said something interesting for once. But there's so much money on the line with the players, the teams, that it feels like they're going to figure out a way to get it done, and it might be as soon as late May.
Yep. All right, Scott. Well, we appreciate all of your insight across various sports. And by the way, Scott recommended a board game called Otrio, which I got, and me and my wife and I were playing over the last few days. When we first started playing it, we thought you could only move one space ahead. We didn't read the instructions, and it was just the first person that would win. And we were like, "This is the dumbest game." And my girl was like cursing Scott. She was like, "How can they find this?" And then we figured out. I went on YouTube because the instructions aren't clear, so you can move anywhere, and it's like such a cool strategic game, and it's amazing how what you think you miss. And but it's a cool game. It's a good quarantine game, Otrio.
Yeah,
Scott may possibly be the best dressed guest we've ever had on the show with the Kansas City Royals t-shirt too. So I just want to get that.
I wore that just for you. Yeah, I knew we'd be talking a little baseball. My 67 win Royals this year. That's if they play 162, Collin. They might not crack 40 wins.
It's yeah. I mean, they're always trying to flip Whit Merrifield or Mondesi or somebody into some draft prospects, and I just can't imagine how you do that in maybe an 80-game season. So rebuilding continues for the Royals.
All right, thanks again, Scott, and hang in there, brother, and we'll speak soon.
See you guys
later. Thanks, buddy. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Rob. I know that you're probably excited for tonight. Actually, some content, some NBA content when the NBA playoffs should be going on with The Last Dance. So we won't hold you for too long. We're just kind of going around the horn, talking to a number of people at Action Network about their particular sports that they cover, and just getting their thoughts, literally 2 to 3 minutes, on the question that everyone's asking. What is your latest updated thoughts, opinions, any inside info on when you think the NBA will conclude its season, if it does at all, and if so, when and what will that look like?
So we actually had Brian Windhorst come on Radio Roulette on Action Network's Twitch last night, and I was looking for just a little bit of optimism from him because he has this reputation for being pessimistic about when the NBA is going to come back. But some of the things that he said, kind of hit home with me, and it's going to be my stance for the foreseeable future. The first of which is, let's talk about actual sports, not even what's going on in the world here, but actual sports. You have, let's say, golf is probably the easiest sport to return because you don't even want to be next to people in golf anyway. So the sport doesn't require as much human interaction that you can bring that sport back first because it's just the easiest. Then let's talk about sports like hockey and football. Those involve physical activity, but the difference there is you have helmets on with jerseys and pads and face masks and things like that. Basketball is you have none of that, and there's as much physical human to human contact. You're breathing on each other, you're sweating on each other. It feels like the most difficult sport that if there's a contagious pandemic disease going around, how do we bring this sport back unless everyone is 100% healthy with antibodies and just isn't positive, isn't sick at that very moment? Because it's just so easy to pass around, as we saw with the Utah Jazz and all the other players that just got it over the course of a week. So I think the NBA is going to be last in terms of coming back for that reason, just because the sport of basketball, but also because the NBA has been spearheading this movement of we're going to suspend the season first. They have this reputation for being very progressive thinkers in all aspects of not just disease, but and they don't want to come back. They've made it very clear that we're not putting a date on it. So I'm not going to say that unless they start playing basketball on July 4th, the season's over. Adam Silver has said everything is on the table, including moving next season back, pushing dates way forward here. So the good news is there's no cancel talk yet. Everything is week to week. And it's my opinion that they will return. They will not only return, but they will play regular season games, because the key note in the collective bargaining agreement with the NBA and the Players Association is the NBA has something that says you have to play 70 games to get the full check from the RSNs. That stands for Regional Sports Network. So whether it's Fox Sports Net, NBC Regionals, AT&T, MSG, Yes Network, all of those networks, if you play 70 games, the NBA gets a giant fat check because it's technically considered a full season. We're short of that 70 number, but we're really close. So it would not surprise me in the least for them to come back, play like 4, 5, 6, whatever games get them to that benchmark. Then we'll decide what happens in the playoffs. There's simply too much money on the table here for them not to come back. And if they can, you can bet they will.
Well, it also doesn't it makes, and you, like you said before, you can push next season back and still make sure it's over 70. You know, you go to 75 games easily. And I think from a product standpoint, it also makes sense to just not have your first games in months be a playoff game, right? Like you want to have a couple games where you can get back in rhythm. And so I think it makes sense from multiple aspects to actually play some regular season games first. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So they've Adam Silver even said, and I think Windhorst contributed to this report as well, that the players are going to need at least 2.5 weeks to get ready. You just expecting that Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Giannis, they've been saying we haven't touched the ball since the season was suspended. Like, we have to get back in here and treat this like we're coming back from the summer, we're coming back from vacation, let alone them actually being good at basketball. Just for them not to get hurt playing in games, they need 2.5 weeks to prepare for this. So we're going to go through a whole new training camp here, and that's if we get to the point that it's full steam ahead, we're back, like the season's back. Even then, you got to wait all of that time to get these players back into the grind, because to your point, you can't just say, guess what? It's playoff time, and everyone with a home gym and everyone with a home court, guess what? You have an advantage, because not 8 out of 10 players live in apartments, according to Brian Windhorst. So they're just sitting there making TikToks.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to note that, like, if they decide to have 4 or 5 games to meet that TV contract to get that revenue, they would have potentially, like, if this was in Las Vegas, they quarantined all the players in team hotels, they took temperatures before and after the games. If you need those 4 or 5 games to warm for the playoffs, you're inviting all the teams to come into Las Vegas and not just the playoff teams. So it's a whole bunch more people. And the only question I had for you, Rob, are you ready for a world like in 30 years where Rudy Gobert is in our children's textbooks in schools?
That's not even like a joke. That's serious. I mean,
It is serious.
Yeah, he's going to go down in NBA history. I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse. I guess we got to see how this pandemic all pans out. We may wake up one day and this ends like that movie, The Happening, that terrible Mark Wahlberg movie, and it just disappears.
Yeah.
The grass killed you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we may make jokes about it one day. We may not, But Rudy Gobert is, because of what he did, we don't even know if he was first. Maybe Donovan Mitchell had it first and gave it to Rudy Gobert. We'll never be able to answer those questions. But because of his actions, he's always going to be the poster boy of this for not only the NBA, not only for basketball, but for professional sports. And that may have triggered the NBA to say, we got to be first here because one of our all-stars over here is out touching things and making a mockery of everything. So the answer to your question is, if you're not prepared for Rudy Gobert to be the context of history, you better be, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, who knows? We might have had an NCAA tournament somehow if that doesn't happen, right? Like, because it was right on the precipice of the conference tournaments, and maybe the NCAA, if there's nothing happening in sports yet, they say, all right, let's just try to do this without fans. So, all right, Rob, appreciate your time, and I'm sure everyone will be watching your Twitter tonight. Stay safe and stay sane out there, brother.
You too, guys.
Cheers,
Thanks,
man.
Rob.
Thanks, buddy.
There's the man that's made me some money the last couple nights.
Somebody's got to make us some money.
Colin.
I was gonna say, I retweeted him out last night. I read it all, put my bets in, retweeted it out, and I'm like, come on, we got to get this, because people need something to bet on. Like, bam, Zerillo got it home again.
Yeah, so we're joined by Sean Zerillo. Those of you who should know him, does a lot for us at Action Network, including baseball. So we wanted to have him to talk a little baseball. When Scott Miller was on earlier, we talked a little bit, touched the surface of when we think baseball is coming back. In the interim, I don't even know if you're missing MLB this much because you've been crushing the Taiwanese baseball. But first of all, how's everything going on your end?
You know, it's nice to keep the betting senses sharp, to be able to see a total drop by 3 runs and know that I'm supposed to bet the over, even though the pitching matchup hasn't changed. So nice to keep the baseball spidey senses sharp, keep my my modeling skills honed. But it's been going well. At this point, I am not missing MLB because, like we said, it's going smoothly for the first week of Taiwanese baseball. It's a bit of a wacky league.
Are you watching? Do you watch like all the games?
Yeah, my body naturally wakes me up because I've got action going at 6:30 in the morning. So it's just, no matter how much sleep I've gotten, you just naturally rise with the sunlight and knowing that the game is just there at Twitter on your fingertips. So it's been an enjoyable time, but at some point I would like to get Major League Baseball back in our lives.
So I think everybody should know that if you haven't bet on this league, this wonderful Taiwanese league, there was a fight. Now, what was the origin? If you haven't seen the clip, look out there. There was a bench clearing brawl fight. Like, what happened over there?
So basically the Guardians, which is the team who was pitching when the fight started, their manager used to be the manager for the Monkeys who they were playing. And it was a 1-1 game at that point. The pitcher was behind 3-0 in the count. He's the best starting pitcher in that league. And I think the manager basically just told him, send a message on the 3-0 count. You saw the batter backing up as he was being hit with the pitch. They did not adhere to social distancing restrictions as the fight got underway. But I think it was purely one of those, like, as we're thinking about Jordan tonight with the documentary, the way the Knicks used to send a message when he would come into the lane. I think it was basically that new manager sending his old team a message saying we're not going to be intimidated. Didn't necessarily work out today. The Guardians seem to be the bridesmaid. They seem to keep getting close and then kind of find a way to choke it away in the end. That's what I've heard about this team. So it's holding true thus far. Monkeys remain undefeated, but I don't know if the league is going to be too keen on these guys getting in brawls with everybody supposed to be maintaining distance from one another.
On the Amir Garrett scale,
better than the
was
Bob
about
fixing
2.
all the games. Go ahead. Sorry, Collin.
I was going to say, on the Amir Garrett level, it was about a 2 of the brawl scale. So it wasn't a 9 or a 10, but at least we got something.
Amir's trying to get into it over MLB The Show with people I'm seeing. So Amir's not letting technology hold him back in terms of getting it in.
Yeah. So, but this is a league though that in the past has had the Chinese mob fixing games, and they've had to disband a number of teams because of that, right? Any you want to share like a quick story there?
Yeah, so we'll have a former pitcher from the CPBL on Chad Millman's The Favorites podcast this week to talk about that. But basically, this league used to be about 9 or 10 teams, and they had to contract it down to 4 teams because there were some game-fixing scandals going on and guys getting approached. So from what I've seen so far, there's a lot of room for error with these umpires to maybe slip in some shady calls. So, bet it small. Don't go too crazy with these the limit bets on these games right now. I mean, I think the limits are basically only like 250 anyway, but just keep these bets
That's a good
small.
point. That's a good point. Is like I think you said to us internally that the umpires, if you think the MLB umpires are bad, we need robot umps over here in MLB. This is another level, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, like if you're going to fix games, how much money could you really make off of it when these limits are, I mean, is any book in the world even have $1,000 limits on these games? So what are you really going to make off of it anyway? What are you going to make off of it?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. All right, well, let's get your thoughts on MLB. And the question that we've been asking a number of people that we've had on so far this hour about their particular sport that they specialize in. And we have, horse racing going on, which I know you partake in. It looks like NASCAR is going to come back Memorial Day weekend without fans. Golf is slated to come back on June 11th. And then the first professional sport, in most people's opinion, to come back looks like it will be MLB. They're taking an aggressive approach in what they're saying and some of the plans that they've had, doing this in one place, having different league realignments. So it seems like they really want to have a season so they can get paid first and foremost. We really obviously want a season to come back. So what are your updated thoughts as to when that would happen, what it would look like, if it happens at all, based on the latest insight and what you've been reading? Where do you stand there?
Yeah, I mean, the timeline for now seems to be no regular season before probably July 4th, somewhere in there at the earliest. We'll know with baseball kind of in advance of the other sports because they have to set up some sort of spring training to get these pitchers, have their arms stretched out. Batters need to get back in a rhythm. I mean, a lot of these guys are stranded. It's not like having a hoop in your backyard where you can go and put shots up. A lot of these guys don't have batting cages that they could go to or mounds that they could throw off of to stay sharp and keep their bodies in shape. So they're going to need a 3 or 4 week period to get prepared even before they do start playing games that count. And then on top of that, the Arizona plan seems to be the most viable thing right now. And guys have compared it to getting kicked in the shins versus getting kicked in the deck. That's really, the lesser of two evils. And pretty much, the players are going to have to decide whether they want to be away from their families for 4.5 months and get tested every day and basically be living in a hotel. Like, you see that show The Circle on Netflix. Like that's pretty much what these guys' lives are going to be like. They're going to be isolated in a hotel. They're going to be tested for COVID on a weekly basis, living in perpetual fear that they're going to get it. And then on top of that, they're not going to see their families for 4 months. So I know Mike Trout said that he doesn't want to be away from his wife when his first child is born. There's other guys who have said that they don't want to be away from their families. Kershaw said it. So that's a big hurdle to overcome. Do we start the season with like half scab teams where some of these star players don't want to play a season of baseball because they're set financially and they're willing to sacrifice the salary? It's possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Kershaw and Trout make a lot more money than a up and coming guy that lost season means a lot more, which is something.
Yeah, and they're already taking a prorated version of that salary, and now if you're being asked to play games without fans, without parking, you're going to be asked to take another hit in terms of your salary as well, beyond it just being prorated for partial season. So there's a lot at stake for these guys financially, but then on top of that, you think about historical records and guys who have played full careers versus guys who get to miss time this season. If guys are going to lose half a season of stats, what does that say about Mike Trout when he finishes, just shy of 700 career home runs or something like that? So there's a lot of like long-term and short-term things kind of at play, and really, I'm sure messing guys up emotionally in addition to financially.
It's really interesting because I've been ready to like dust off all the park factors we have for Surprise, for Goodyear, for Camelback Ranch. I mean, if they have this in Arizona, I just wonder, what there's going to be from a pitching perspective, from a wind perspective. Like the handicap is going to be, I don't know how much different, but I mean, we're talking about, possibly perfect weather every day. And we've just got a whole new set of variables to handicap if we do have a crowdless spring training extended, type scenario.
Yeah, do you even give home field advantage, like in factor into that handicap? It's with these Taiwanese games, I'm still giving a home field advantage just because they're playing in their home park. They're traveling around a little bit, but if there's no travel involved, if you're playing at a neutral ballpark, I mean, maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks get an advantage playing in their own home ballpark just because the familiarity and the way they built their defense to fit the park or whatever. But by and large, I don't really know if home field advantage is going to be a factor at spring training sites.
It's going to be interesting to watch the grapefruit teams to see how they do if they did that for the first week of play, to see if they can respond, because with the sight lines and the new fields and everything, it'd be an adjustment for them. And
think about a team like the Rockies too, not only from a team building perspective, but from a fantasy perspective. Like if you have Rockies on your fantasy team, just get them off the team. There's no point. If fantasy drafts are going to need to be redrafted basically, but teams who are built to play in a particular park, the Yankees with their left-handed power, to be able to take advantage of that short porch, like it's not going to play the same. It's going to play out differently than you would expect it to. And playing fewer games is just going to leave more ample opportunity for, teams who are kind of off the radar to maybe slip into the playoff picture.
You're just trying to get our White Sox future to the windows so that we can rub it in Stucky's face. Yeah.
Well, if futures do hold, it's long shots. I don't know what they're gonna do about futures, but long shots would have a better shot in a shorter season with more variance.
You would think so. I did see a potential divisional realignment though that had the Dodgers, the Indians, the White Sox. Basically, the White Sox were going from the weakest division of baseball to the hardest division of baseball. Yeah. Just by purpose of geographical realignment. So there's there's a lot at stake in terms of just how they even decide the schedule should play out, let alone how it actually does play out as things change month to month, as the situation continues to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is baseball is America's pastime, right? And then it would make so much sense. Obviously, we wouldn't do it just for this, but wouldn't it be great for July 4th weekend we get baseball back? So you mentioned that as a potential date. As of right now, what is your guess? Do we play it, and if so, when do we start? Obviously, it's fluid, but just based on what you know now.
I'd say first week of July, regular season, hopefully, in about 100 games. 100-game regular season, slightly expanded playoff.
Well,
it's probably 8 teams each side instead of 6.
That would be a nice treat for the first week of July. And people are always looking for new shows, including myself. You mentioned The Circle on Netflix. What and people contain? What is that about, or is it not worth watching?
Yeah, don't watch that.
Okay.
Way better Netflix baseball stuff. The Battered Bastards of Baseball. That's a fantastic documentary. Watch about Kurt Russell, big part of that. Russell family. Wyatt Russell, I think, was actually part of that team as well. So, yeah, check that out. Battered Bastards of Baseball. Really good documentary on Netflix. Good poker documentary too on Amazon. Inside the Edge. This guy, it's blackjack. My bad. This guy's a professional blackjack player, basically trying to take advantage of casinos all across the U.S. So it's a fun.
What's the name of that?
I believe it's called Inside the Edge. It's a professional blackjack story or something like that. It's a fun little prime.
Is it a documentary too?
Yeah. Cool. That's he wears disguises and does the whole thing.
Cool. All right. Well, appreciate you joining us, brother, and hang in there. Stay safe, stay sane, and keep churning out some Taiwan winners.
Let's keep winning those games.
All right, brother.
Talk to you guys.
Take it easy, man.
Hey, Sean.
All right, so there you have it. We'll talk to a couple other folks on another episode. We've gone 45 minutes. Feels about right to cut it off here. We'll talk to maybe Sobel. Leave off about hockey. You don't really hear much about what's going on in hockey. But a quick summary, it's NASCAR Memorial Day weekend, and you're damn right I'm going to be betting that race. PJ Walsh, yeah. We'll have him on also. Then we have June 11th, golf. You better believe I'm betting on that tournament. And then we'll have potentially MLB, according to Zero, hopefully the first week of July. I mean, that would just be awesome 4th of July weekend to have it back. And then, the hope with NBA is they're going to try and find a way, but it's up in the air. They're going to be conservative, according to Wob. NFL, I think everyone is pretty optimistic there that we're going to start in time. The NFL is going to find a fucking way. I don't care about player safety anyway. College football, we think it's going to be they're going to play a season. They will find a way. There's too much at stake, but it looks as of now it's going to be too difficult to do on time. So Collin and I both agree it's probably going to be a delayed season, but we'll have it, which at this point I just want to have it. College basketball will depend on what happens with college football. Yeah, that's a pretty good summary. Like I said, we'll get NHL and a couple other sports later in the week. Collin, thanks for joining me, brother. Everyone else, stay safe, stay sane out there, and we'll catch y'all later. Cheers.
Peace out.